so one question I do get asked quite a bit is, I've got some investment capital, Anthony, but how much am I going to need to be able to buy myself a brand new HMO and renovate it to make it a cash flow rich property, which is such as, for example, 5 ensuite bedroom property. So let's give an example, because it's quite an open-ended question, and give you an example of the sorts of funds you're going to be needing to make sure you can go through this project and this sort of process. But obviously the first thing you need to do is to buy the property, obviously doing your due diligence, doing your surveys. But obviously when you're buying a property as a buy-to-let, you're going to have stamp duty to pay, the solicitors to pay. And typically if you're buying a buy-to-let property, you'll be doing an 80% loan to value mortgage, so you'll need your 20% deposit. So we're going to be buying, for example, a 3-bedroom, 2-reception room house, a nice big kitchen diner. Let's say we're buying it in Earlsdon in Coventry, so we're going to make it into a nice 5 ensuite bedroom property, which will be very good as far as cash flow is concerned. Typically, obviously, you've got all these different fees to get the property itself. We're spending about £58,000. That means the property is then yours. Then the next option is going to be obviously on the refurbishment of the property. This is typically about the same amount again. So if you worked on about £60,000, you're not going to be far off. Typically what you're then going to spend on renovating the property to make it up to standards. Now, some of the tips that I would recommend to you on certain aspects of the refurbishment itself is pull everything out and start again if you can do. Minimising obviously timescales, make it as time efficient as you possibly can do, but what you've got to think is not in the short term but in the long term with regards to a renovation. If you're going to have a HMO, there's a lot more footfall as far as people walking in and out of the property, and there is wear and tear that will happen. So go for better quality goods. But if you start as you mean to go on, for example, rewiring if necessary, it's expensive, but in the long term your property is then up to electrical standards. In addition to that, the central heating system, get a new combi boiler in there. But one thing I will recommend to you as well on top of this is in a lot of cases the combi boiler will not be able to cope with 5 en-suites if all the bathrooms are being used at the same time. It's just not going to do it. A key factor with that is water pressure. So one tip I will give you, for example, in a 5-bedroom ensuite property, is that you'll do 2 electric showers, which are cold water input, which will be obviously heated through the electric showers. I'd always recommend that you make sure exactly what the fuse actually allows you to have as far as electrical flow through the property as well itself, typically up to 80 volts on your fuse itself. Then with regards to the hot water, you've got, let's say, 3 showers going at the same time. You need to make sure there's enough water pressure. So the recommendation I would give you is to get the boiler, the combi boiler itself, but also get a water tank or a cylinder, which will constantly be filled up to ensure there's enough water pressure there to cover the additional showers that are going on at the same time. So I've said about the electrics, I'd always recommend go down the route of rewiring if you can, and making sure it's up to modern standards, up to level 18, I believe, at the moment. In addition to that, obviously the central heating system, redecorate the property, making sure it's up to a clean, fresh standards, make it modern, make it attractive. As far as doors within the property, obviously you've got to get your fire doors, making sure they're all up to standard as those as well. But maybe you don't go down the standard 4-panel wooden doors, and you maybe go down the Americano, the carved wood doors, to really make that extra effect that you can have. Decent quality carpets within the property itself. Fire risk, you need to make sure you've got your emergency lighting within the property, and also your fire detection system as well, heat detectors in the kitchen, as well as your fire detections with regards to smoke in the bedrooms and also in the communal areas as well. With regards to furniture, I would always recommend that you get decent quality, long-lasting furniture. Don't go cheap. You don't want to have to be replacing them regularly. As far as beds are concerned, it could well be the famous phrase I use, the cheating double. Not quite a double, it's actually a 4-foot bed, but in a lot of cases you're going to end up having one person living in there, so it's more than big enough. It's just halfway between a double bed and a single bed as such. But what I'd always recommend is don't go down the divan route, always do a bed frame. You can do a metal frame, maybe with wooden slats or even metal slats on there. The reason being is actual air ventilation and circulation around the room is really, really important in your HMOs. So typically, once you've bought the property, you're then renovating it. If you aim for about the £120,000 mark, you won't be far off, but that doesn't mean you've got £120,000 tied up in the deal itself, because you can then refinance at the higher value to release some of the money you've invested in the property. I do hope this helps. Thank you very much.